Hey, what's up, everybody? Frederick Polk here. So, in this video, I'm going to give my hot take on Greenland, and I'll skip to the end. It's looking increasingly that the U.S. is going to militarily occupy Greenland, and that's pretty much going to be it for us and our allies in NATO. But I think that's where it's headed, and I'll tell you why. But before I get there, we're going back up a bit. And then by a bit, I mean a whole lot. To the Roman Empire. See, while a lot of people today on the right love studying the Roman Empire, they might know some of the legion names. They might know, the different types of armor and unit designations and all that. They don't really understand how the Roman Empire actually worked. And especially when it came to the provinces. Here's how it worked. And this is the reason why they gave the census. Now, for those of you more biblically minded, the reason Joseph and Mary were going to, was it Jerusalem? I can't remember. But anyway, the reason they were going to, the whole Jesus and the baby in the manger story is they were going to take part in the census. And that's what the Romans did after they pacified or conquered a province and designated it a province, is they took a census. And the reason they did that was for tax purposes. Now, what the Romans did not do is they didn't set up an administrative state. They did to a degree. You had a governor, but the governor was more of just like the representative of the empire. The actual day-to-day, like the IRS, was a private enterprise. So what the Romans would do is, let's say, we'll talk about Gaul, which is modern-day France. They conquer Gaul, they take a census, and then they go back to Rome and they put it out on a bid. And they say, there's this many people in Gaul, we think it's going to generate X amount of taxes, right? And so they would farm that out to a private company. And people would bid on it or cash in political favors, and they'd get the contract. And so then they had the exclusive right to essentially recoup that investment and get the taxes. And the Roman legions and the governor would back them up. So the Romans would get their money up front, like say, let's just say we think that there's $10 billion in taxes in modern day France. So, you pay us $8 billion or, whatever. Yeah, $8 billion. And you can go farm the rest. So that's what they do. Now, if you're a private enterprise and you've basically been given license to do whatever you want, are you going to stop at 10 billion? Or are you going to go more? You're going to go to 11, 12, or every little bit that you can squeeze out of it. Or you're going to do the latter, especially if you've got the Roman legions and the governor backing you up. So that's what would lead to all this civil unrest. That's what would lead to this hatred of the quote unquote Roman tax collectors. They didn't really work for the state. They didn't work for the empire. They were a private entity. Now, if you were just some, resident of Gaul, would you make that differentiation between, well, that's not really a Roman, a Roman politician or a statesman. That's actually a private entity. No, you see the legionnaires backing them up and you go, well, that's the Roman Empire. Screw them. We're rebelling against the whole damn thing. That's what you do. And while that I may be reaching back to a very old way of doing business, we actually did that in America not too long ago. Under Taft, it was called dollar diplomacy. And it was spreading of quote unquote democratic ideals and institutions, i.e. capitalism, American style capitalism. And what Taft would do is, well, he would basically make loans to private entities or businesses, and then the government would back up those loans. Or he'd make it to a government and then basically guarantee those loans. He did that in South America, and that's where we got the term banana republics, because Dole and all these other fruit companies would go down there and basically just exploit the populace. And then when they had any civil unrest or they had problems, or people weren't following the dictators that they set in place, well, they'd unleash the U.S. troops on them. And U.S. troops were backing up American private interests with the blessing of the federal government. And it was horrible. It had disastrous results. That's where you had a lot of unrest, and why there's still a lot of, Yankee go home kind of stuff that you can even still feel down in South America today. There's some of that legacy. What changed was after World War II, we went with more public interest. That's when we actually started doing it with the federal government. U.S. aid under JFK is part of that tradition, where instead of farming it out to private entities, we did it with civil servants and federal employees, and we pushed American soft power with basically public money. And it was accountable to the government and to Congress and to the people. Now, we've had mixed results with that, but we have also had better results with it. Because typically, if you're going in with the government, as a civil servant, you're trying to do your job. You're not getting like a kickback on, how much you exploit versus that populace. You're going, hopefully, in for ideals rather than a profit motive. So what the hell does all this have to do with Greenland? Well, I don't want to speculate as to why Trump's ultimate motives are to do this. It doesn't really matter. It could be just something in his brain, or he's doing this at the behest of whoever his handlers are now, or it could be a mix of all these things. It doesn't matter. But one thing is, with Greenland, he seems like a dog with a bone. And taking J.D. Vance at his word in his little speech at that military base is, we have to yield to the president's desires, or whatever. He did say desires. He, like he's a damn king or something. So what does that really look like? Well, Greenland does have a lot of mineral resources that, U.S. companies would love to go in and exploit. And there's a notion that there's a lot of untapped wealth in the Arctic, and that might be the next place for another coming resource rush. And Greenland's perfectly situated there to basically take advantage of that. And here's the other thing too. In an occupied region in a U.S. territory, you're basically under, military law. You're not beholden to Congress. You're not beholden to the laws of the United States. It acts differently. I don't want to say you can do what you want, but you can pretty much do what you want. And Trump's kind of already given away his blueprint to a degree when he talked about Gaza. He basically said, we're going to move everybody out, and then we're going to build it up. And when they come back, it's going to be so amazing. And they're going to enjoy it. Yeah, if they can buy back into it. That's the part he leaves out, which for your average Greenlander or, Palestinian, they ain't going to be able to buy back into that. So, oops. Well, I guess it's ours now. And he's also talked about setting up free cities for these billionaires to basically act like their own, little barons and dictators and, whatever they want to do. And trying to do that in the United States, well, hell, there's all kinds of challenges with that. There's civil ordinances, there's, municipal, state, federal. Yeah. And plus Americans, that's not going to really fly with us. But in Greenland, Oh, yeah, you can set up a free city to, run whatever you want to do. You want to set up some dystopian hellscape while you've basically moved everyone out, or you've made them into wage slaves, or doing whatever you want. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Kind of like with the Romans. You basically declare it a economic free zone under the protection of the U.S. military, and then you let Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whatever horrible billionaire go in there, or Mark Zuckerberg, and do whatever the hell they want. And they will absolutely do it. So, yeah, it's looking more and more like Trump is getting ready to militarily occupy Greenland. Because I don't think Denmark's going to shoot at us. And I don't think the Greenlanders are going to really resist. Not because they're weak, but it's just, at best, you're going to do a symbolic insurgency. And yeah, we might lose a few people, but Trump ain't gonna care about that. If Midwest mom and pa, or some folks of color lose American servicemen, they don't give a shit. So yeah. Now, what that means when that happens, well, that's pretty much it for us in NATO. We're done at that point, which, frankly, Trump said he's wanted to leave it anyway, so that's no big loss to him. But what would that do to us? Well, effectively, we'd become a pariah in the world. I mean, we're kind of like the asshole right now that everybody's putting up with, and everybody's starting to draw boundaries and, kind of let us know that what we're doing is not cool. But if we did something like that, you want to talk about galvanizing Europe, that would do it. Especially bringing them together. You want to talk about sanctions, not tariffs. I mean economic sanctions. That would do it. Probably force Canada into the arms of the EU. I mean, at that point, we've shown we're not playing around. And all that talk about annexation in the 51st state, which Canadians are definitely taking seriously, and not just Trump being Trump. Oh, that would really have those fears confirmed. Yeah, we'd be kind of on our own. And while some folks might say, oh, that's no big deal, we'd be fine, we're such a big country, blah, blah, blah. Hang on. We're not really set up to be an internal economy. We are absolutely dependent as a global economy. We would have a lot of economic disruption. I mean, a lot. All this varied diet that you're so used to, and you're loving it, from all over the world, any kind of cuisine you can get. I mean, especially if you live in the cities, that'd be gone. We'd have to rely on our own internal agriculture. And if you've seen anything about Florida, where basically 90% of the orange crop has basically been devastated by a bacteria, and they're just now starting to figure out those bacteria-resistant trees that are going to take years to grow. Hope you don't like oranges. That's just one aspect of it. Greenland's one of those things that if we did that, just to let billionaires have their little, dystopian warlord dream, we're all going to pay for that. Everybody involved. Us, Europe, especially Greenland, Canada, hell, the world. I don't know if it'd lead to a world war. That's a whole other kettle of fish, but it certainly wouldn't be good for us. If you think a coming recession's looking bad now, that would look even worse. And knowing Trump, he'd just double down on it. Curtailing of civil rights, travel restrictions, hell, even freedom of movement from state to state. I could see all that. Try to quell all this civil unrest that would pop up. So yeah, if there's one thing I'm worried about, it's Greenland. And unfortunately, I think it's coming. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Keep the faith, defend democracy, and I'll see you later.